In the Edo period, you can find all kinds of food. Just about every corner in Edo is a hawker selling sushi, a soba store, or a tempura stand. But in the 200 years Japan was isolated from the world, you won't find much meat there. Most Japanese practice Buddhism or Shinto, where eating meat from mammals was seen as unclean and corrupt. Not very fun fact. People didn't know that whales were mammals back then, and ate them anyway. The resulting traditional Japanese cuisine rarely features meat, instead focusing on seafood and vegetables. But no, fat boy, I've thin wagyu sticks and Kubota pork and yakiniku. Sorry kids, but meat eating doesn't start until at least 1853. 1853, the Americans came with gunboats. Pointing their guns at Japan, the United States volunteered Japan to sign unfavorable agreements. The Netherlands, Russia, Britain and France thought it wasn't fair that the US was the only one who got to bully Japan. So they did the same thing. Japan had enough of the bullying and decided they needed to be one of the cool kids and westernize. In 1869, a new, meaning western, government took over and began the Meiji era of civilization and enlightenment. It's believed that the westerners were jacked because they ate meat. To convince the population reluctant to eat meat, they fed the emperor meat and had him say, "Hey guys, I just ate meat, so it's totally A-okay now." But while the Japanese population started to see eating meat as civilized, there remains a problem with that. You needed to be rich. Most middle to low income families could only afford to visit cheap western style restaurants occasionally. If you're even poorer than that, you'll be eating brown rice and millet. Here's where the military comes in. And then the military started feeding people a balanced diet? Nope. We're still about 50 years away from that. If you're a high-ranking military officer, sure, you're starting to eat the good stuff. But if you're one of the regular meatbags for the military, you're basically eating white rice and pickles. You see, at this time, white rice was more expensive than unpolished brown rice. The military gave troops white rice to entice people to join the military. Each troop would receive 1.08 liters of rice, and a basic allowance of 0.066 yen to buy any side dishes. Military men usually came from poor families, and they would send money back home, leaving them with no side dishes to eat except for some pickles. That would change, starting with this guy. This is Takaki Kanehiro, the son of a low-ranking Satsuma samurai who made money doing carpentry. Son, do you see that man over there? He is a doctor. What's a doctor? Son, doctors are honorable men who serve the greater good of the people, the most knowledgeable among men, savior of lives, and the most virtuous of professions. Father, I won't disappoint you. I will become an honorable man, and more importantly, finally be able to wear some cool white socks. Wait, what? What? And so, at the young age of 13, Takaki decided to become a doctor to wear pretty cool white socks. Takaki studied medicine under Ishigami Ryosaku, went to the Boshin War together with him as medical officers, then saw William Willis, an English doctor, operating on the wounded, which he thought was pretty cool, so he studied under Willis. But Japanese elites decided that German medicine was better than British medicine, and Willis lost his job. William suggested Takaki to study in Britain, but because Takaki had no money, he joined the Navy in order to travel to Britain. It was there that Takaki saw beriberi, a disease causing fatigue, poor reflexes, irritability, memory loss, nerve damage, and even heart failure. Japanese sailors fell ill on average 4 times a year, of which 35% were cases of beriberi. The sickness, also called kake, or the Edo sickness, affected the whole of Japan, but especially the urban residents of Edo. Up till the end of the Meiji era, 6,500 to 15,000 Japanese died every year. Nobody knew what caused it. After studying for 5 years, Takaki returned to the Navy in 1880. He began researching beriberi while slowly rising in ranks. Now, this is the ship Ryujo. In 1883, Tiet went on a training mission. 376 men came back from Kauai and 169 had beriberi. 25 of them died. This was a big hoo-ha at the time. Beriberi seemed to have only gotten worse. All eyes were on Takaki, who was the director of the Naval Medical Bureau. Note that he was still powerless to make any drastic changes. You see, his research told him that higher ranking officers and westerners had a higher protein diet and didn't suffer from beriberi. But the higher-ups were reluctant to change the troops' diet because the Italian navies had tried doing so, but that led to unrest. Also, changing the entire navy diet, as you can probably tell, moving from rice and pickles to rice, pickles, vegetables and meat is quite expensive. Takaki believed that he wasn't wrong, so he put down the ultimate cheat he had to offer. We are going to do what I suggest. And if it fails, I will pay for it. By Sudoku. Another ship, the Tsukuba, is set to do a similar training mission the next year. So, the suggestion is to swap that diet over to the Western diet, with bread, sheep biscuits, salted meat and beans. When they came back, only 14 people in 333 were sick from beriberi. What's more, all who got beriberi were the ones who refused to eat the food. Takaki's experiment was a huge success and managed to convince the Japanese Navy that diet was the problem. So in 1890, the Navy replaced the allowance system with a central distribution of ingredients and swapped to a Western-style diet. Although Takaki's experiment showed results, this didn't affect the Army's diet. Hey, our soldiers are sick, the Navy changed their diets and suddenly they're not sick. Shouldn't we be doing something, like following what they did? But the Army surgeons were like, nah, you'd be fine. You see, Takaki is pretty odd as a doctor. Most doctors who studied medicine went to Germany, but Takaki went to Britain instead. As a result, most Japanese doctors didn't approve of his methods or experimental results. Most doctors believed that beriberi was caused by germs and not diet. Debates were frequent among doctors, with Takaki constantly being outnumbered on his scientific opinions. So while the army were facing the same beriberi problems, the Navy went on a gastronomic adventure. Beriberi in the Navy dropped by 94% and there were no more deaths from beriberi. Not only that, the healthier crew also had 50% less disease and injuries. In the Western food section in the 1908 Navy recipe book, you had roast beef, fried cutlets, mac and cheese, omelettes, croquettes, and curry. Yes, curry is considered a Western dish in Japan. And yes, curry is a British invention. More on that in another video. After World War I, the military started taking notice of the power of science, and the food in the army finally caught up in quality. Good nutrition equals buff soldiers. Traditional fish and vegetables equals thick man. Nutritional research made meals in the Navy and Army became more like what the 1908 recipe book had. These Western recipes had much more protein and carbs, and also had new cooking methods like deep frying to add calories on the cheap. Using unfamiliar Western food also solved one more problem. The disposable head counts of the military all came from different regions of Japan, and each region had their own unique taste to each dish. There wasn't a common Japanese cuisine that is acceptable to everyone. Now, nobody knew what Western food tasted like. Some changes were made, like changing dishes to complement rice, soy sauce, green tea, and other Japanese ingredients. Shapes of food are changed for chopsticks. This Japanese-Western fusion, where the meat dishes came from, would be called yoshoku in Japanese, literally Western food. Yoshoku outside the military was supposed to be expensive, so when the troops tasted it, they were like,
"This some serious gourmet shit."
Muneta Hiroshi, a military writer who was an active soldier from January 1929 to November 1930, recalled in one of his books, "Compared to what the average household had in that era, calling military food a feast is truly a fitting description. Considering the context of that era, military food was such an extravagance that people couldn't believe it." And if that wasn't enough, you might want to know about the man called Akiyama Tokuzo. About 1904, Akiyama visited a military base due to his family's business, tasted the cutlet, and was so shocked by the taste that he later moved to Tokyo alone at the age of 16 and became an apprentice cook. Akiyama later became known as the Escoffier of Japan, and even had TV series and books made about him. So if this guy, who is called the Escoffier of Japan, got so mind blown by the food as a teenager that he decided to make his life go a chef, you know that shit is good. Since conscription became compulsory since the 1870s, many Japanese would get a taste for yoshoku and spread word of it back home. As a result, the side effect of the military trying to buff up soldiers was the training of a nation of gourmets, who now also got to like the taste of meat. As Japan got richer, so did the common folk. But the government realized that most still have bad diets and ate worse than the military. Realizing the military are kinda experts in mass feeding nutritious and cheap food, they set up a committee together in 1925. But there was a problem. For some reason, this committee was neither officially part of the military nor the government, so they don't have any funding. Companies selling food supply to the military saw this and was like, hey, since we're such good friends, we're gonna lend you a hand here and give you some money. Of course, companies don't do shit for free. Their purpose was to sell stuff to the common folk, and this sponsorship allowed them to advertise their products. Exhibitions, recipes and cooking demonstrations popularized canned, frozen, processed ingredients and Western ingredients like meat, potatoes, onions and curry powder. Then, World War II happened, and food became shit again during the war. After Japan's defeat in 1945, military cooks and dietitians found employment in restaurants and canteens with Western menus. Companies started producing ready-made versions of yoshoku that were originally meant for the military. These were still considered fancy food, so being easy to cook only made them even more popular. Until the 1980s, yoshoku was the only Western food known to many Japanese, as ingredients to make authentic French or Italian dishes were unavailable. It is only when the Japanese economy became so strong that authentic restaurants started popping up. Today, yoshoku is considered a part of Japanese cuisine, and meat, a common ingredient in Japanese homes.